You see the media wanting to influence low vibrations inside all of us. A target piece on a person will tell you how to feel about them. It doesn't just give you facts about them. It uses sentences that are very emotional to make you go, yeah, I'm going to hate that person too. So the media is part of our dumbing down program. It's part of what keeps us in the low vibration and the fear. And what the future human kind of alludes to is we're moving into a transformation time. And I do think the internet is a huge part of that. I think the fact that so many voices and so many learnings can come to us now from each other through the internet. And there are so many platforms like yours, or, I'm one of many like you doing work like this, where there is a desire for something different. And that's what we're seeing. But up until now, there has still been this stranglehold on what's allowed in the mainstream, and what the Z's talk about in the book. And I think what we're seeing is these next few years, we're going to see a real flip around that. It's going to be that more of the, shall we say, transformational or possible energies are going to be more visible on the planet and more raised to the surface. And some of the control is going to really struggle to hold on to the old narrative, the old way of being, which was keep people small, keep people afraid, keep people compliant.
I mean, the book does really take on this theme of control and power head on in many ways. It seems like what was previously a pyramid is turning into a flat line in very many ways. This whole hierarchical structure is just being challenged into like flattening it out into one, I don't know, flat circle. I don't know what the shape is for the future. Maybe you could allude it. But it's really this it's elements of control that have previously been there. It's challenging that people can very much and see that these no longer serve, but that's only going to become even more apparent. Am I right in sort of understanding that's the next kind of between now and 2032? Like really that's this window where things are really effervescing to the top, or is it even beyond that? Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you. I think we're there. You only have to look around to see the, how do we put it? Well, I'll back up a second. So the Z's always said for years, they said, as consciousness continues to rise and rises very fast, you are going to see more of the old rising too, and attempting to stop progression, attempting to stop evolution. And so if you just look at what we're seeing worldwide, and a lot of our focus, I think, goes towards world leadership, government, because up until now, that has been the power system in which we are all held. And we're supported through it in many ways. The Z's have always said, you say you want it all to fall down overnight, but you really don't want that, because if it all falls down overnight, you won't survive. So they said, that your systems are holding you in place, and what needs to happen is a slow shift back into a different way of us working as a people. So I think many of us have been. I find it interesting whenever you see a narrative that wants us to blame ourselves for everything that's happening on the planet. I saw a movie that had a real agenda to it, I felt, and at the end of it, it was like, well, humans have messed up the planet. And I was like, interesting, because actually, if you think about it, most of us are doing what we are allowed to do or what we are told to do. And there is an authority above us that tells us what we're allowed and what we're told. And like many, I grew up not really seeing that. I grew up thinking, I grew up just growing up, and I found spirituality before I started to become more aware of some of the underpinnings of society that will actually limit our spiritual growth. So this is that moment. This is that moment where it's all beginning to go head to head. And so you are seeing this rise up of higher consciousness. So that would be positive media, transformation culture, people being more in their hearts, people becoming more emotionally aware, emotionally literate, people doing things on behalf of the planet or different groups of people who are marginalized or who have not been served. So there is this actual push within people to balance everything more than it has been. But equally, we're seeing this power game happen at the top that wants to take us back 50 to 100 years, which is exactly what the Z's said would happen years and years ago. But it's interesting seeing it play out now. And they've said that, we will, it won't last. It will fight hard. It will kick. It will scream. The question is, how far do we have to go down that path before it snaps and goes the other way? But it will go the other way. The question is, how long will it take? And the other thing they've said, and the reason I'm going to share this is, I think when I say some of this stuff, people get concerned, understandably, because it's intense. It's an intense topic. There is often this fear of, well, how do we do anything? How do we have any of the power? And that's why I think people start to think they're doomed, because there is this sense of, oh, we don't have any power, we don't have any control, we don't have any influence. And the Z's are like, no, you do. You absolutely do. And it's interesting, when I spoke to Pam Gregory a couple of weeks ago, and I know you have had Pam on your show and she's wonderful, she was telling me about some of the uprisings that she was reporting on around the world, and I hadn't heard some of that at the time. But again, there's increasing evidence of people's spirit and people's life force rising up above anything that might be negatively or inappropriately holding it down or suppressing it. So it is a very tricky time, and the Z's said in about 2020 or 2021, I have a members community called The Portal, and every month I go live in there. And in one of those monthly sessions, the Z's said, you're in the middle of a frequency war. Some of you are worried about World War III. It's already here. You're already in it, but it doesn't look like how war used to look on the planet. You're in the middle of a frequency war. And so, even me using the word war is tricky, because I know people watching this, people listening to this, we have a programmed response where we go, understandably, and it's generational and it's cultural and it's energetic. It's in the energy field of the planet. So that was why I said to Regina before we embarked on this book, I said, I'm happy to go through all these topics with you. I said, however, I have no interest in this book being disempowering. I said, and that's not what I'm here for. That's not my mission. And she said, no, absolutely. I also want this to put power into people's hands rather than disempower them. So, that's how I approach these topics. Because I've definitely touched on many of these things over the years, but this is perhaps the most in-depth channeled information I've ever done in those areas. Yeah.
Hey there, Inspired Evolutionary. If you absolutely loved this, well then here's a full conversation with this guest on the Inspired Evolution podcast. Check it out now.